The 25-lap sidecar German Grand Prix 500cc machines, 1988, round 2 of the World Championship. On the left, in pole position, 4 times World Champion Rolf Bieland. In the centre, number 1, reigning World Champion Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, the British riders. On the right, number 5, the Zerbrugge brothers from Switzerland, 3rd on the grid. Behind them, Alain Michel and Fresque on the left in the 2nd row. Then Masato Kumano, the Japanese rider, with Marcus Barney, his Swiss passenger. We've had a lot of bad weather here at the Nurburgring. In fact, it was so bad at one time with fog and wet that they thought they might even have to cancel the race. But mercifully, the fog has lifted. It's dull, but it's dry. And away they go. Marvellous start from the Zerbrugge brothers. Now down to the first right-hander. Bieland's got away. Webster is right up alongside him. And through to the middle has come the Stolzer brothers, number 14. But it's Bieland leading. It's Webster second into the right-hander. It's the Zerbrugge brothers in 3rd place. And Best, Jones and Ayres, the British riders. Rolf Bieland leads. Lap 1, Bieland leads. Webster second. Zerbrugge is 3rd. And Egbert Streuer, the Dutch rider, the world champions from the past, have failed to get going. They were only 6th on the grid. This is an appalling blow for them. 2nd in the World Championship of 1987. But at the present moment, it's Bieland leading. That's no surprise. Derek Jones, you saw, has got away well, about halfway down the field. Bieland leads, Webster second, Zerbrugge 3rd, and in 4th position, Fritz and Hubert Stolzer. Well, the race is already running absolutely to form as they come down towards the left-hander before the Ford curve. And Steve Webster crouched down over his machine with the engine behind him, and Tony Hewitt, reaching out for the handhold on the right, is keeping a watching brief on world champion of the past, Rolf Bieland. 1978, 1979, 1981 and 1983. Bieland was world champion and Webster's coming right up with it to go through. Steve Webster leads, lap 1. Beautiful bit of riding. Through the left and right of the chicane. Bieland fights back. The Zerbrugge brothers hold on. In the background, number 14, the Stolzer brothers, and Bieland is up in front. Webster takes a tighter line and regains the lead. Oh, what a marvellous race already, because look at the way the Zerbrugge brothers are going. That is 1 lap completed, 25 laps to go. Fast and furious. The lap record held by Streuer and Schneiders, 1 minute 47.6. That is 94.4 miles an hour. But Steve Webster with Bieland is making the pace. Steve comes from York and he retakes the lead on lap 2. There are 20 World Championship points at stake because the winner gets that number. 2nd place man gets 17. 3rd man gets 15. 4th man gets 13. So on down to 15th place where there is 1 point. And Barry Brindley, the British rider, is in 10th position. And it's the British rider and passenger who lead. There is Streuer and Schneiders, the Dutch pair. Lucky Streuer he has on this machine, but he's very unlucky at the moment because he's failed to get going, and his German Grand Prix has finished before it even began. And we're now on lap 2 out of 25, and Steve Webster is showing some daylight between his machine and Bieland. And they are, of course, on slick tyres, no tread pattern on the tyres. Bieland gains, just shows the nose of his machine to Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt. And watch the way the passengers move to get their weight in the right place as Bieland sails through on the inside to take the lead on lap 2 from Steve Webster. And up goes, he's out! As I thought might happen, Bieland is in trouble. Something happened. Maybe he just missed a gear. But anyway, this has given Steve Webster his opportunity. Up into 2nd place go the Zerbrugge brothers, and Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt will undoubtedly grasp this opportunity with both hands. Down into 5th place has gone Beeland. I think he must have just missed a gear. You probably saw the hand of Kurt Valtisberg, his passenger, go up in the air to signify that they were in trouble, which they rapidly recovered from. But now, Steve Webster is leading these Brook brothers by just about 1 second on lap 3. Well, one mustn't count chickens before they're hatched. It's early on in the race. But Webster, 3rd in the championship at the present moment, behind Stroyer, who is out of the race, is now well ahead of the championship leader. There he is in the background, number 3, Rolf Beeland. And Webster and Hewitt are tremendously cool and are now very experienced. They have been racing sidecars for 9 years, ex-Clubman's champions. Their first Grand Prix was in 1983, and they have now won 4 Grand Prix. And Beeland is coming up through the field. It looked to me then as though he was in 3rd position. There's the Brook brothers, there is Beeland, he's fighting back. He has got ahead of Masato Kumano and Marcus Farney, who were in 4th position. And the gap between Webster and Beeland now is just over a second. And we are on lap 3 as Beeland goes up again. 2nd place, what a marvellous scrap. These 500cc, 140 horsepower, 4-cylinder, 2-stroke machines, mostly with Yamaha engines. A lot of them, however, with very much modified Krauser engines. And Beeland is now back where he was, in 2nd place. Don't forget, though, that at one time he led the race. Steve Webster will know exactly what the score is now as they come round to the left-hander on their way to the Ford curve. This rather antiseptic Nurburgring circuit cannot compare with the old 14.5-mile one as far as driver skill is concerned, but it's a great spectacle on television, as you can see for yourselves. It's very much built with safety in mind. The spectators are held well back, and Beeland is going for it. Webster moves across to take up his racing line. He's on lap 4, coming up to 1/5 distance. And now Hewitt, as they come to a straighter bit, will tuck himself down as far as he can behind the fairing in front of him in order to minimise wind resistance that Beeland is gaining. Well, there's no doubt that Rolf Beeland has got... There's the Stroyer getting away. So the others have completed 3 laps as Stroyer, Egbert Stroyer, the Dutchman, with his passenger, Schneiders, gets away, 3 times world champion. Here's the battle. Webster leads, Beeland 2nd, and comes out of Webster's slipstream and takes the lead. 21 laps to go. Well, whatever Rolf Beeland's problem was with rain clouds looming and glowering overhead, he has magnificently recovered from it. He takes the lead from Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt. So it's the Swiss couple leading. The British couple in 2nd position. There is the ex-world champion, Egbert Stroyer, and Schneiders, his passenger. Unlucky Stroyer, because you can probably hear his engine spluttering as Steve Webster takes the lead again. This is real ding-dong battle, because behind them it's pretty close for 3rd and 4th, and they're not so far behind Rolf Beeland, who is in 2nd place. The race order on this lap 5 is, as you can see for yourself, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, the world champions, leading. Number 3, Rolf Beeland, and Kurt Valtisberg. In 3rd position are the Swiss Zebrug brothers, Alf and Martin. In 4th position, just behind them, the Japanese driver, Masato Kumano and Marcus Farney. And they're 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Teamwork and trust is what it's all about. and Bieland and Baltisberg are showing that by taking the lead as they come through to complete the 1/5 distance lap. They go over it absolutely together. Now I've got a stopwatch running with these Brook brothers challenging in 3rd position. They are 10th in the World Championship at the moment with only 6 points. The Zabrook brothers. You can see the rain clouds overhead, and that's Stroyer in the background. He's managed to get up amongst the leaders, but of course he is not with the leaders in the sense of challenging for the lead, because he is 3 laps behind them, more than 3 laps behind them. He might adopt spoiling tactics, although I doubt it. The first 3 are now absolutely together. Number 3, Rolf Bieland, leads the German Grand Prix for sidecars, 500cc machines. Kurt Baltisberg right alongside him, Webster going through on the inside. It's a left-hand bend coming up, but Bieland cuts across. The Zabrook brothers are right behind Webster. First, second and third, here they come. Going about 120 miles an hour here. So let's follow them round the course. Into the forward curve, building up speed, slightly downhill here. Lap record, I remind you, 1 minute 47.6, held by Egbert Stroyer. And I'm optimistic enough on behalf of Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt to believe that they are just keeping a watching brief and seeing what happens to Rolf Bieland, where he changes gear. They're coming up almost to the end of the lap, and the Zabrook brothers are going through. Webster leads, the Zabrook brothers go up into 2nd place. Bieland is across the line now, and they've just gone round in 1 minute 49 seconds, and they're absolutely together. Bieland leads, these Zabrook brothers are leading. Swiss pair leads, Swiss pair 2nd, British pair 3rd. We are on lap 7. Coming up to 1/3 distance, and this is totally unexpected. These Brook brothers from Switzerland on their Yamaha-powered LCR outfit are in the lead of the German Grand Prix, followed by their compatriots Rolf Bieland and Kurt Baltisberg in 3rd position, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt. In 4th position now, the Stotzers, and there goes Bieland back into the lead. But it's still anybody's race, and you can see that Stroyer, number 2, and Schneiders, the Dutch pairing, 3 laps behind, are keeping up. So they must be really metaphorically kicking themselves for not being able to get going. And in the background too, Alain Michel, look for him, number 4, and Jean-Marc Presque are in 5th position, or were, because they're now up into 4th. Plunging downhill to the lowest part of this Nurburgring circuit, up to Dunlop Bend, the right-hander, with Bieland leading, Zabrook 2nd. Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt in 3rd position, taking a bit of a breather perhaps. Coming up to the Hatzenbogen. From the Hatzenbogen into the Vidal chicane, that's it. From the Vidal chicane into the Roma curve to complete another lap, and they do that now. Bieland leads, Zabrook 2nd, Webster 3rd, and going for 2nd, and going for the lead. But Rolf Bieland plunges across on the racing line from the left, but Steve Webster has gained a place. This is lap 8. This is 1/3 distance, just under. Bieland leads, Webster 2nd. Now, most of these outfits are LCR outfits. LCR stands for Louis Christian Racing. Louis Christian is a brilliant Swiss engineer who works with Rolf Bieland, 2 tremendously innovative engineers, and it was them that broke the mold of the conventional motorcycle and separate sidecar and produced these incredible machines, which are in effect 3-wheeled racing cars. And the fastest lap has been put up by Alain Michel and Jean-Marc Presque, his passenger. Webster still challenges for 2nd place. This is lap 8. Well, Wieland has got the experience. You're looking now at the man who in his career has won 41 sidecar Grand Prix, far more than anybody else in the history of the sport. 47 Grand Prix, actually. 47 Grand Prix won by number 3, Rolf Wieland, the 4 times world champion from Switzerland. Is this going to be number 48? Or is it going to be the 5th Grand Prix victory for Steve Webster, who is in 2nd position, or even the 1st Grand Prix for the Zerbrook brothers, as across the line go the Stolzer brothers, and 1 or 2 retirements round the circuit now. You can see now what a sidecar outfit looks like, how low it is to the ground, literally knee height to the riders. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, absolutely together. Up into 3rd place now has come Alain Michel, the Frenchman from Montélimar, with Jean-Marc Fresque, his passenger. 12 Grand Prix winners, and the pair that you saw in the pit lane were the Japanese driver Kumano and Marcus Farney, his passenger. They were well up in the race earlier on. Out of it now. But Rolf Wieland certainly isn't. This is lap 9, the German Sidecar Grand Prix with world champion Steve Webster, number 1. Tony Hewitt from Doncaster alongside him. Tony works for the railways. Steve Webster works for himself as a professional driver. And Steve's father is an ex-grass track solo champion and very, very much a supporter of his son. But now the pace is being made by Alain Michel, who has been racing sidecars for 13 years but has yet to win a world championship. He's in 5th place in the championship at the present moment, as coming towards us, the leader, Rolf Wieland, 2nd Webster, 3rd Michel. In 4th position now, the Brook brothers just in the background. Number 2 Stroyer has managed to keep up with the men in front, but of course is not in the running of the race because he's 3 laps behind as a result of his late start over the line to complete lap 9. Absolutely fairing to fairing, and Alain Michel is going for it. Alain Michel, who has come up from 9th position on the 1st lap, now drops back. He's overcooked it, obviously, and it's Webster leading. Oh, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt leading the German Grand Prix from Rolf Wieland, with Alain Michel back in 3rd position. As they sweep and soar and brake and accelerate around the Nurburgring, well, there may be a comparatively sparse crowd here in relation to the one that's expected here tomorrow, but my goodness, they're getting their money's worth. The Wieland goes through and takes the lead. Lap 10. Wieland and Webster have got each other sized up. Wieland very much the established star, and Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt very much the newcomers, and that is what happened to Alain Michel. He just overcooked it on the right-hander after the start and finish straight. You saw his wheels lock up and his tyres smoke. That enabled number 3 Wieland and number 1 Webster to go through, and it enabled the Zerbrook brothers, number 5, to go through. And that's the order, 1st, 2nd and 3rd as they come up to complete the 10th lap. Minute 48.12 is 6/10 of a second outside the lap record put up in 1986 by Egbert Stroyer and Schneiders, his passenger. Well, Wieland is building up a bit of an advantage at the moment. Not much, but he doesn't need much. If he can maintain that gap, he's got it made. But I very much doubt that he will. Look at the way Kurt Baltisberg, who has been passengering for Rolf Wieland for many years and who knows every move his driver makes, gets right over the machine. Look at him now, hanging right over the right-hand side of the machine. Now he tucks himself away. You can hardly see anything of the Swiss man. Over to the left to get his weight in the right place to keep the sidecar wheel on the ground. And they're lapping at 95 miles an hour average. And that means to say on the faster part of the course, which they are approaching now, they will be doing over 140 miles an hour as a result of their 140 horsepower punching through that single rear driving wheel. Slick tyres. See the crowd coming in the background. They're missing a lot. The course is actually in prime condition. It was a bit damp. It's dried out now. And you can tell from the speeds that the conditions could hardly be better, although a bit of sunshine would brighten things up. We are on lap 11, coming up towards half distance, which is where reliability will count as you look at Van Kempen and Marcus Egloff, number 11, the Egloff brothers. There's 3 lots of brothers in this race. And number 2, Egbert Streuer, is not going to finish in the top 6 in this race, but my goodness, he's going to show that he could have if he had been able to start, because he's right up with Webster leading now, Wieland in second place, in third position, Alain Michel and Mark Fresk, and then the red helmeted couple are Streuer and Schneiders, 3 laps down, but matching the pace of the 3 flying outfits in front. There are the Zurbrugg brothers in 4th position, number 5. The forested Eiffel Mountains in the background. The historical Schloss Nurburg, Nurburg Castle, overlooking this course as it overlooks the great 14.5-mile original Nurburgring circuit. They go through here, the Vidal chicane. After the Hatzenbogen, over the line to complete another lap. Steve Webster leads, Wieland second. Number 4, Michel is in third place. Number 2, Streuer is 3 laps behind. And Wieland is going for the lead and takes it. This is lap 12. Half-distance lap. Streuer, incidentally, if you want the facts, is in 17th position. He is 3 laps behind, but he's matching the speed of the leaders. Egbert Streuer, second in the World Championship after the 1 round that we have had so far. First round of the championship was in Portugal. We go on from West Germany to Austria, to Holland, to Belgium, and then to our own British Grand Prix at Donington, which Steve Webster won last year, and he's leading in Germany. But for how long? Streuer could well affect the result of this race by simply getting in the way of one of these 3 people who are in the front. Webster on the right, Wieland in the middle in the yellow outfit, Alain Michel, who has recovered magnificently from nearly going off, and Wieland goes through on the inside, retakes the lead, lap 13. 1 minute 48.02, and it is Egbert Streuer, the man who holds the lap record, who has put up that fastest time, albeit slightly slower, 4/10 of a second slower than his own 1986 lap record. And I've just had them on my stopwatch at about the same time, with practically a blanket able to cover the first 3. There go number 5, the Zurbrugg brothers, here coming towards us now. In 5th position are the Stolzer brothers. As in most classes of motorized competition these days, there is a tyre war here in Germany. It is a tyre war between the British Avon concern and the Japanese Yokohama concern. And it's being fought out at the front, because number 1, Steve Webster, is on Avon tyres, and number 3, in second position, 4 times world champion Rolf Wieland, is on Yokohamas. Alain Michel tucked up there behind Rolf Wieland on lap 14. No, Michel is missing. That's Egbert Streuer behind. Michel has dropped back. Where is he? Can't see him in the picture. So now the race is very much between Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, out to win their first Grand Prix of 1988 in an effort to retain their 1987 World Championship and 4 times World Champion Rolf Wieland. This is the end of lap 14. And Steinhausen out. His race did not last very long. This great German ex-champion, TT winner, very much a veteran these days, but still very, very quick. And Steinhausen at one point of the race was up into 6th place before he dropped back. Steve Webster and Streuer has now got ahead of Wieland. Not a lot of love lost between Dutchman Egbert Streuer, the bearded, heavily mustachioed man from Assen, which is where the Dutch TT is held every year, and Rolf Wieland, the Swiss driver. But this is working very much to Steve Webster's advantage, because if he can keep ahead of number 2, Egbert Streuer, it will enable him to build up a cushion, and he's got another competitor between him and his chief rival. Well, all that Streuer is doing now is proving that he could have won if he'd only started on time. And he may have consolation in getting the fastest lap, but you get nothing for it. And Wieland has got back ahead of Egbert Streuer, who is 3 laps behind him as far as race distance is concerned. Here they are to complete the lap. We'll see how it goes as far as time is concerned. Now, yes, 1 minute 49.6. And Wieland is through, back into the lead, lap 16. Ten laps to go, including the one that they are on. This race is going to last about 35 minutes, which may not seem very long, but the concentration and the physical demands, especially on the sidecar passenger, are absolutely enormous. They've got the wind buffeting them all the time. Unlike the rider, they are not locked into the machine with troughs to kneel on. The rider kneels and doesn't sit. He has the 4-cylinder engine behind him, driving the rear wheel, and Wieland leads. Number 1, Steve Webster, Tony Hewitt is in 2nd position. Incidentally, the race numbers indicate what their World Championship winning positions were last year. Thus, Rolf Wieland was 3rd in the championship last year. Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt won it, and Streuer was 2nd. And we're on lap 16 now. And I remind you again that although Streuer is up there with them, and at the moment the man who holds the fastest lap in the race, he is not competing for the lead. He is 3 laps behind due to a tardy start. Egbert Streuer making the most of the slipstream behind Rolf Wieland. Here coming towards us is the 3rd place pairing. It is the Brook brothers from Switzerland. In 5th position, you can see there is the gap. It's the Stolzer brothers. And Webster back in the lead with Streuer behind him. And we missed what happened. Obviously, Wieland put a wheel wrong somewhere or other. And we're getting to the crucial stage of the race now. Because if Steve Webster can get a bit of a breakaway now, if he can build up a gap between himself and Wieland, he will consolidate his position, and Streuer diving for the inside. If I was more cynical and less suspicious, I would be pretty sure that Egbert Streuer was not only trying to prove that he was just as quick as anyone else, but also anxious to get himself into television as much as possible. And my goodness, he is succeeding. He's hanging on to Steve Webster. They're both inching away very slightly, but inching nevertheless from Rolf Bieland. Webster looks over his shoulder. You can see that with Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt out front, the gap between them and the people that they have to worry about most, number 3, Rolf Bieland and Kurt Valtisberg, is increasing. Indeed, in terms of time now, the gap between Webster with Streuer trying to go through on the inside, and Bieland is 2 seconds, and 2 seconds is a great deal at this speed. It is just possible, of course, that Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt will not realise that Egbert Streuer is in fact 3 laps behind them and think that he is actually fighting them for the lead. In which case it explains why they are obviously driving and riding at 10/10. Watch Hewitt. Now watch the actions of Doncaster man Tony Hewitt, the passenger to the world champion number 1 Steve Webster. They have a great deal to thank a man called Dennis Trollope for, because Dennis Trollope is the man who helped Webster and Hewitt develop their riding ability by providing the right sort of machinery in their formative days, as a result of which they are where they are now, world champions. And Bieland is fighting back. Bieland is charging now. I am more and more convinced as I watch Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, and you look at these Brook brothers there, number 5 in 3rd position, about 6 seconds behind the battle for the lead. I'm more and more convinced that Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt do not realise that number 2, Egbert Streuer, against whom they have fought so much in the past, are well back in the race. Streuer is actually 15th at the present moment, which means to say that he is on his way to 1 World Championship point, which could, in the end analysis at the end of this 9-race season, make all the difference. Now the gap between Webster leading and Bieland in 2nd place is now at racing speed less than a second. Lap 19 in this 25-lap race. And Bieland must be absolutely cursing the outfit in front of him, that of Egbert Streuer, because he is stopping him from getting at and challenging Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt. And Tony Hewitt, looking back from time to time, must be giving a metaphorical thumbs up to the bearded, mustachioed Egbert Streuer for making things easier for him. Not easy. There's nothing easy about sidecar racing at this speed as they come into the Vidal chicane on the 19th lap out of 25. Out of it in a moment. There are the Brook brothers, 3rd. Fine race. As I said earlier on, these Brook brothers were only 10th in Portugal, and the race order now is Webster leading, Bieland in 2nd place, in 3rd position these Brook brothers, in 4th position it is the Stolzer brothers, in 5th place behind the Stolzers it's Bernd Scherer and Thomas Schroeder, and there they are, number 34, and then behind them in 6th position is Wolfgang Stropeck and Hans-Peter Demling. But it's the lead we're concerned with, and that is the leader. Those are the leaders, to be more exact, because Tony Hewitt deserves as much credit as Steve Webster, who is piloting the outfit. If the passenger wasn't the right man and putting his weight in the right places, Streuer tries to take Steve Webster and fails to do so. And Bieland has closed the gap. 1 minute 47 157.87, that is 2/10 of a second outside the lap record. 151.58 kilometres an hour, and that is 94.4 miles an hour. That's how quickly they are averaging around this 2.82 mile circuit, with Wieland making a supreme effort as we come up to the closing stages of the 500cc German Grand Prix for sidecars of 1988. And Webster is driving a superb race, but now he's got a problem because Stroyer has got the inside line, but Webster is back on the racing line and holding the Dutchman back, who dives out of Webster's slipstream and goes through for the first time. Now we'll see how quickly Egbert Stroyer could have gone if he had had the chance by getting away well at the start, with 5 laps to go, including the one that they're on. And this is a danger time for Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, because they are leading the race. Egbert Stroyer, number 2, who has just passed them, is 3 laps behind due to a late start. And so the yellow outfit of Rolf Wieland, the world champion leader, is in second place of these in the race. The championship gap in terms of points after Portugal between Wieland leading and Webster in third place, who looks over his shoulder and sees where Wieland is, was 5 points. And if Webster and Wieland finish this race where they are now, first and second, the gap between them in the World Championship will be down to 2 points, with Wieland leading. And still 7 races to go. One of them is going to be the British Grand Prix at Donington Park. And if it's anything like last year's, and Wieland's going for it. Wow, and Stroyer is in trouble. And that was an absolutely fantastic bit of driving by all 3 of them. Stroyer has blown his engine up, I suspect, in going for that fastest lap. Wieland saw his opportunity and tried to get through. Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt said, "Oh, no, you do not." Let's have a look at it again as Wieland charges up the inside of Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, who pass Egbert Stroyer and Schneiders, and in doing so have got exactly the right position on the track for the left-hander which follows, and that enables them to hold their lead. They're coming up now to the end of the 22nd lap. Just laps 23, 24 and 25 to go at the end of this one, in what has been one of the most exciting sidecar Grand Prix we have seen for a long time. They're on their 22nd lap. Quiet, cheerful Steve Webster. Quiet, equally cheerful Tony Hewitt, his passenger. They make a great pairing. They obviously get on extremely well with each other, and you've obviously got to in this business, because if you can't work in harmony as a sidecar driver and a sidecar passenger, all sorts of horribly dramatic things can happen. So they are plunging down now, past the shell curve, now climbing uphill for the left-hander, which they're approaching now. That's followed by the very, very fast right-hander out towards the Hatzenbogen again on lap 22. Almost at the end of the lap. And now Wieland desperately trying to build up momentum as they come out of the right-hander. There are these Brook brothers in third position, and there's now about 7 seconds between the second and third men that you are looking at now. Such is the searing pace of this German sidecar Grand Prix. World Championship event, round 2. There the Brook brothers. Driving the outfit is Zerbrugge Alf, and in the passengers compartment is Zerbrugge Martin. And locking up the sidecar wheel there, Steve Webster really trying, and he's really trying because it is absolutely fundamental to his World Championship chances that he wins this race. He did not go as well as he expected to go in Portugal because he made a wrong tyre choice. He chose too hard a compound, whereas Rolf Biland chose exactly the right compound, and as a result of that, so close is sidecar racing these days that the Swiss pairing beat the British pairing #1, the world champions, who finished in 3rd position and 5 points in the championship behind Biland and Valtisberg. We are on lap 23. Conditions still remain ideal, a bit soggy off the course, but they are on the course, and that's what matters. Coming up now towards the bit curve, the right-hander. And Rolf Biland looks over his shoulder at Valtisberg as if to say, get back in the compartment quicker. I need all the minimum resistance I can get, says Biland, because we're going for it now. This is lap 4. This is the 24th and last lap but one of this rivetingly exciting German sidecar Grand Prix. 2 laps to go, including the one that they are on. And at the beginning of this race, Steve Webster led. He led for 6 laps. Then Biland took over until lap 11. Then Webster took over. And it's significant that from laps 12 to 23, and they're on lap 24 now, it is Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, #1, the reigning world champions, who crossed the line first. Rolf Biland has just made the fastest lap, 1 minute 47.9, which is 3/10 of a second outside the lap record. But it's not fast enough. It's not fast enough to catch, never mind get past Webster and Hewitt, who are riding and have ridden the race of their young lives. Watch them go. 140 horsepower, over 150 miles an hour, and parts of this German Grand Prix. And Biland is trying to get onto their tail. The crunch point of this race is going to be on the 25th lap. The last lap when they go into the right-hander at the end of the start and finish straight, the Castrol curve, followed by the left-hander. And they're approaching it now. If Biland can get there, if he can get alongside him, at that corner he could challenge them for victory, and he's getting very close indeed to it. Biland is trying to go through, and he does it. It's exactly as I said. Biland chooses his moment superbly. At the start of the 25th and last lap, he gets through at that vital corner, takes the lead from Steve Hewitt and Tony Webster, who have led ever since lap 12. Well, have Webster and Hewitt got anything in reserve? I rather think, as they come up now towards Derek Jones and Brian Ayres to lap them, the man who won the British Grand Prix some years ago in 1978, I think it was. Derek Jones looks over his shoulder, sees Biland behind him, and this is giving Steve Webster the opportunity to close up. But they're both past, and there is no doubt that Steve Webster gained a little there, but I have equally no doubt that the crafty, experienced, race-wise Rolf Biland has had something in reserve all the time. Look at the way he is going on this last lap. He is fairly streaking away. This is a fantastic bit of sidecar, World Championship standard riding by 4 times world champion, 47 times a Grand Prix winner, Rolf Biland, who is about to make it 48, and who does so by winning the German Grand Prix to take another 20 World Championship points, but in a superb second place, having fought for and held that lead for a long time, Britain's world champions Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt. And the Brute brothers come home in 3rd position, and That means to say, of course, that number 3, Rolf Biland, with his passenger Kurt Valtisberg, as these Brook brothers cross the line in 3rd place, has consolidated and increased his World Championship lead. Truly, a sidecar German Grand Prix to remember. And just to prove it, Rolf Biland shatters the lap record by over 2 seconds on that meteoric last lap. What a race! So, after a magnificent German sidecar Grand Prix, a second 1988 win for Rolf Biland, who increases his World Championship lead, ahead of Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, who were second, and these Brook brothers, who were third. Of the other British pairs, Steve Abbott and Sean Smith were 10th, Barry Brindley and Graham Rose were 11th, Derek Jones and Brian Ayres were 12th. But now Webster and Hewitt have moved up to second in the World Championship, just 8 points behind Biland and Valtisberg.
And confirmation of all that after what was a sensational race. Second place for Webster and Hewitt behind Biland and Valtisberg, but the other British positions, Abbott and Smith 10th, Brindley and Rose 11th, and Jones and Ayres 13th. And the World Championship position after those 2 rounds, well, it's still Biland and Valtisberg, but Webster and Hewitt moving up into second place, 8 points behind.